It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, and I'm calling this City Council meeting to order. All councils present besides Councilmember Vasquez. She will be joining us later for the work session. And with that, if you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd also like to acknowledge that we, the City of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squaxin Indian Tribe. With that, can I get a motion to approve this evening's agenda and consent agenda?
I would move approval of the agenda and consent agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Motion unanimously carries. We've approved our agenda and consent agenda. First up on our approved agenda is public recognitions and presentations. And we will start with our National Academy graduate. I'm going to turn it over to the city manager and then over to the chief of police.
Thank you, Mayor Ryder. I just wanted to take this opportunity tonight to recognize Lieutenant Barnes on your recent graduation from the FBI Academy. Lieutenant Barnes was just recently, about a year ago, promoted to the rank of lieutenant, and as part of that process, he was also able to apply and enroll in the FBI Academy. So I want to invite Chief Amato to come up to give an overview and publicly recognize this accomplishment.
Lieutenant Barnes, if you join me at the podium, please. I have a brief 54-slide presentation. Yes. No, kidding. So, Lieutenant Shannon Barnes, which recently celebrated her 30th anniversary with the city. Yeah, got cool watching everything. So, as the city manager was discussing, she was promoted to lieutenant approximately a year ago. We enrolled her in the FBI National Academy, which is an executive leadership academy, which was started in 1935. It's a 10-week program, and participation is only by invitation and through a nomination process. Sessions include up to 265 officers, including 35 international students from 48 states and the District of Columbia, as well as members of law enforcement agencies from 24 countries, 11 military organizations, and 4 federal civilian organizations. Academics, physical fitness, and networking are the 3 core components of the program. Coursework includes classes in intelligence theory, terrorism, management science, law, behavioral science, law enforcement communication, and forensic science, as well as conducting press conferences. So she was able to give me some advice for today, so I appreciate her hard work. Also stressed in this in the 10-week course, fitness, which includes 3 to 4 classes of fitness per week, culminating in a grueling 6.1 mile run and obstacle course built by the United States Marine Corps. Upon completion of the run, students receive an actual yellow brick to memorialize their achievement. The yellow brick run's a big deal. Right. If you want to go to her office, it's actually on display. It's pretty cool. So Lieutenant Barnes is the 2,786th woman to graduate from the academy, and she is the first female to graduate from the Lacey Police Department. Her graduation is actually March 13th. She is a member of Class 293, and in addition to these accolades, she also earned a postgraduate certificate from the University of Virginia for her work with the Academy. So, thank you for your work and your efforts.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So on our next agenda item, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite traditions in the city of Lacey. This is Poetry Month, and we have a poet laureate in the city of Lacey. It's our former deputy mayor, Cynthia Pratt, and she's going to come up and read a poem for Poetry Month.
So congratulations, Lieutenant Barnes. That's great. Mayor Ryder, Deputy Mayor Miller, and the rest of the council, thank you for allowing me to present a poem for National Poetry Month. And, always when I start thinking about what the theme of it could be, it kind of goes back and forth. But I happened to hear Erin Quinn Valcho, our curator, talk about how we actually got our name. She finally found and tracked down O.C. Lacey, and it was a very interesting presentation. So I started with that, but then I thought, well, I can maybe try to feed in some history. However, just so you know, I am not a historian, so this is a mixed up history. False starts and strong persistence. And the epigraph says, a very brief history, not in any order. The name Lacey conjures up a texture of frills and fine thread, but the truth lies light as a handful of Cheez-Its. How can we not smile at history's dichotomy, that of being named after a justice of peace, con man married to two women at once? Still, even that truth becomes only a sliver of what breezes through our streets, especially when heat reminds us to relax. Think of lakes with wooden slides transporting tourists into still water, or the station stop at Woodland Park and sulky horse races, which never quite took off despite the morning Olympian news listing the track as one of the best. Oh, Isaac Ellis, how could you have known that people are fickle? Still, the area became a successful fairground for a few years, and just so you know, promoted by a widowed woman. Yes, that other gender. This area, before we got our name, never gave up, though. On warm summers and those rainy winter nights, music reverberated on evenings in our entertainment halls. The Evergreen Ballroom, starting in the Depression, lasted 7 decades. A vessel of magic notes. Olympia may think itself the entertainment destination of the region, but it can't compare to having Fred Astaire or Janis Joplin. Railroads and their cars were our legend through the 70s, those converted diners and dance floors, a shiny glare with a stage and microphone that shone with local names, willing to raise their voices. Those Richard Roundhouse days where so many, like myself, hustled and bumped on the dance floor with a grudging spouse, not crazy about dancing, but twisting hips and lifting up feet to the beat that rocked down Slater-Kinney Street. Speaking of which, let's not forget Slater-Kinney singing from a garage on the roadway with their name, even when they forgot they started here in Lacey. History here is an embroidery of color and intricate knots. This old train stop is a gem. Even our name, Lacey, in Old French means cheerful, a time to remember, a time to smile, dance, and sing. The lacing that braids us all together cords us into the future so that this very moment, as I am reading you this poem, becomes a past where the city ties each strand to display us not just as fine lace, but keeps spooling forward, giving comfort, reaching out. The Christian Bible defines Lacey as healer, as in the meaning to provide us with a music hall filled with well-being, a throbbing heart over all of us, leaving us humming a song into the future where it becomes one of the top 40s to return to. I name it Location, Location, Lacey, sung with Taylor Swift's beginning line, I promise you will never find another one of me. All that despite our nefarious namesake's past. Thank you.
Love it, Cynthia. Thank you so much, our poet laureate. That was great. Okay, next under our public recognitions and presentations is our Lacey Community Academy graduation, and we just got to celebrate with them a little bit before this meeting. I got to talk to several people, but I'm skipping the council report. I'm sorry that. Let's do the Lacey Youth Council report, then we'll go to the community graduation. So. Lacey Youth Council. Sorry, I was trying to skip you guys.
Good evening, Council. My name is Sophia, and I'm representing the Lacey City Youth Council. Last meeting, we got to talk to social services and get an understanding about what they do and talk about what the youth needs. Along with that, we are planning for a meeting with the Olympia Youth Council. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Avani, and I'm representing Timberline High School. The fire alarm was pulled twice last week, and yesterday was the Cultural Assembly auditions. Prom ticket sales open up next week, with the theme being Vegas at the Foss Waterway Seaport. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Oh, good. It didn't do feedback. Hi. I'm Eliana, and I'm here to report for Pope John Paul II, as always. Today, we completed our tuna drive with the junior class winning instead of the seniors, but that is only because our principal donated to the juniors. Backstabber. Recently, we also had our junior retreat, which was really great. It's also led by our seniors, so it was just a great opportunity to kind of dive deep into our faith. I got to give a talk. It was just an amazing experience. And we also included Mass and adoration, which was really nice. And while that was happening, the underclassmen got to take the pre-ACT. Very happy to be an upperclassman. Next week is our school's annual gala fundraiser, which the seniors help lead. And so I will be the stage manager for all of the student activities during the gala. And that's going to be really fun, at least for me anyways. I don't know how many the rest of my class is going to enjoy doing it, but I'm going to have fun. Next week is also the FBLA State Conference with many of our students heading out, including our keynote speaker for the gala, and all of us seniors are going to have to dash back a day early to do the gala, so that'll be fun. Our chess club also returned in their second year of state championship, so they won. They're doing great. Some of us, I don't know if it became obvious yet, but I'm a senior. And some of us have actually also started a countdown on some whiteboards of how many days we have left and then how many school days we have left. So, that's motivation. We have started our preparations for International Day, which is led mostly by the Multicultural Club, but also in continuity with the National Honor Society, which is really fun. So we're going to have, it's mostly a potluck, which is great because food. But it'll be really nice because we will also get to dress up in cultural attire, and I think it'll just be really fun. We'll also be doing a before meals prayer in a number of different languages. I'll be doing the ASL portion. Our spring sports has been going pretty well. I'm not in any spring sports, but I hear a lot about them. And from what I've heard, the track team has been doing incredibly well, having gone to an invitational last weekend and another invitational next weekend after the gala. And they've just been doing really well. They're just great. And then with us being in the Catholic time of Holy Week, we have been continuing our Lenten resources, which will also be included in Mass tomorrow to celebrate. So that'll be really cool. And also, our talent show got announced, which I'm very excited about because we haven't had one in a couple of years, and it's going to be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Zuri, and I am representing North Thurston High School. It has been a busy few weeks. There's been field trips coming up for students interested in pursuing trades, so learning a trade. AP tests are on the horizon, and those interested in a leadership role within the school may sign up for student body elections. In sports news, out of over 250 teams, our esports team is qualified for playoffs, with 2 North Thurston High School representatives competing in the spring national tournament starting next week. Our Rams soccer team beat Timberline last week, and putting us at first in the Nisqually Conference. And the baseball team also won both their games last weekend, 4-2 over Peninsula and 4-0 over Port Angeles. Lastly, our North Thurston Skills USA team won 3rd in carpentry and 1st and 2nd in cabinet making, and one student will even get to represent us in nationals.
Oh.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Isabel Valerio, representing Riveridge High School. We're halfway through our spring sports, which have been going well. As of now, our track is actually under construction during track season, so our track practices are held at Nisqually Middle School instead. We have our celebratory assembly for our spring sports and prom coming up. The assembly is where the theme for this year's prom will be announced, so tomorrow. And we also have our spring blood drive this week. Our FFA is preparing for their plant sale coming up, which they don't just sell plants, they sell other things like crafts, stickers, cards, and more. Our junior class recently had a Pie in the Face fundraiser where students could pay to pie some of the junior class officers, which was very successful. And we have SBAs and other tests coming up shortly, which everyone is stressed about. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, now we'll go on to our Community Academy graduation. Jenny. Thank you, Youth Council.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Thank you to those of you who were able to join us at 5 o'clock for a little reception for our graduates. As you all know, this is year 1 of our Lacey Community Academy, and I might be biased, but it was a great success. Yeah. So I couldn't have asked for a better group of people to start this out. I walked in on day 1, and I mean, these are all strangers to each other, and you would have thought that they were just like best friends reunited after not seeing each other, because there was conversation happening at all the tables and just a sense of ease in the room. So tonight we're here to recognize and just congratulate them. But first, I just want to go through and give you just a little overview of what we did in each of our weeks. So week 1, a big thank you to Rick and Shannon and Sadie. They did a great job of giving kind of a Lacey 101 overview, kind of going through City Council. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, you both were there, so thank you for popping in to say hi. But it was really fun. We had some great presentations. We did some great role playing with council, so they were some people were just volunteered to be mayor, deputy mayor, and they came up and they kind of walked through the process of how we adopt policies and projects. And so they went through, I didn't have a picture of that, dang it, but they were voting on public art, and it was a really tacky, big thumbs up statue. So it was just really fun, and I think that they just got a good feel for and also just seeing you guys here today and seeing how you kind of operate a meeting, it just gave them a good idea of how council meetings are run. We did a little exercise where around the room we put up posters and just for each of the departments, like, what do you think this department does and what questions do you have? So that was a really great week. Week 2, we had our wonderful Public Works Department. Scott Ager did a phenomenal job gathering his team, and we had Aubrey and Peter and Scott Devlin come, and all of them gave great presentations kind of in their area of expertise. And you'll see some photos here. We got to take a little field trip I forgot to take pictures of them presenting, but they did a wonderful job. But we did a field trip of the Hawks Prairie Water Treatment Facility. So Chris Nickel and another Scott Beer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everyone was getting a little confused with all the Scotts on Public Works night. But Chris and Scott did a great job of giving us a tour out at the treatment facility. And I think it was a big eye-opener for everybody, myself included, at what a complex water system we have. So pretty cool to see that. And just they got to ask a lot of questions. They're full of a lot of great questions. And our council did it, or staff each night did a great job of answering those questions. Week 3 was community and economic development. We actually started our evening over at the Lacey Makerspace for a great tour led by Michelle Pope, the manager over there, and Wesley was there. And that was fascinating. I think only a couple people had actually knew about it. And so it was a new discovery for a lot of our academy attendees, which is great. And I think it has led to a couple people like sharing it with their friends who are creators. And so the word is spreading, which that's the whole point of this, right? And then we came back here for a great presentation from Vanessa and Wesley, just sharing all about what CED does for our community and talking about zoning and developing and annexation. So it was a great night. Week 4, we had Parks, Culture, and Recreation, which is always a highlight and fun. We met for the evening over at the community center just to show them a different building that the city has and took a tour. Jenny Wilson and Sue Falesh gave a great tour of the park and highlighted some disc golf courses and highlighting a couple projects that are on the horizon out there. They were each had the opportunity to test the Frisbee out on the golf course. And we actually it was perfect timing. We had somebody coming out with like his backpack and he showed us some amazing shots, like trick shots. We were all like, whoa. So that was a great night. And then let's see, week 5 was the PD, Chief Almada. You guys provided a great presentation. Chief, Deputy Chief, they started it with kind of an overview of what the PD's culture is with our community, internally with staff, and also highlighting our new police department that is being built as we speak. And then, of course, Sergeant Fichek and Sergeant Thompson, they gave some great demos. Cameron was our volunteer. Raise your hand, Cameron. So he volunteered to get down on the ground and got the wrap installed. And so they kind of talked through how they do that and went through step by step and brought him to a seated position on that. So that was fun. And then we also got a taser demonstration. And of course, no evening is complete without Trip. So Trip made a stop by as well. And that was great. And then our final, last but not least, we saved the most exciting one for last, was Troy with our finance department. Chelsea joined him. They gave a great presentation. As we all know, taxes, budget, that is all very confusing and a lot to try to understand, but we tried to do it in a way that engaged them, some interactive slides. We did a little presentation, but a activity at the end where each group table was kind of their own council, and they were given $100 as their budget, but they had $110 in budget requests. So trying to decide how do you determine your priorities and come to that decision. So It was really great. So we're really, really thankful for their dedication for coming and showing up every Thursday night for 6 weeks. And so we have some certificates that I would love to just read off, and then they can come up. And if you want to come up, Mayor, and just hand them and then if you guys want to come and just shake hands with everybody.
We want to do a picture with everyone. Too,
yeah, that'd be great.
Too,
great.
So.
Do you want me to read names?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Cameron Richards. I'm just going to keep reading. We'll clap for everybody at the end. Jennifer, I'm going to mispronunciate the last names. Magnione. Jesse Ford. Jim Eichner.
Did you say Maggione?
Josh Carey.
Oh, not like Chuck?
Kind of, yeah.
Congratulations.
Keith Deline.
Congratulations.
Mark Nobita.
Congratulations.
Mary Bennett.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nancy Sorensen.
Congrats, man.
Paul Arnold.
Congratulations.
The other Paul. I don't think that's Paul is here.
Congratulations.
Paul Salois. Yeah. We'll stay up front for a photo. Yeah. Sharon Carr and Susie Lopez. Let's see. Oh, hang on. This one's Susie. Thanks, Susie.
Congratulations.
And then let's gather up the front of you. It was really fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Very fun.
Yes.
I like to hug. Even more.
That water tank doesn't look that high. It is up there. Yes, it is up there.
So before we go on, I just want to give a big shout out to Jenny. I mean, it's woo! I mean, absolutely. This was something, we've always been talking about ideas of how can we better interact with our community and get more engagement. And Jenny is the one that really was leading on this from day one. She's the one that brought it forward. Council was immediately yes, and it was all go. So just thank you, Jenny, so much. I could see the benefit we have with the community. It's such an important part of our lives, what happens, here on the dais. And few people really understand the workings of what it takes to have a great community like the city of Lacey. It's a lot of hard work. There's so many public servants out there that are working behind the scenes that we just don't see, you don't understand. But when you get an opportunity to go through and understand a little bit more about the finances and public works and our amazing police department, their community policing model is, I think, the best there is. and to have the public come in and learn. And I also had several people who applied to go on to our boards and commissions, which is something, other thing that we always are looking for, to actually be on a full-time advisory board to this council to help us make decisions to benefit our community. So it's been a win-win all the way around, and it wouldn't have happened without Jenny. So thank you again. Okay, next up on our agenda, and if you guys want to stay, you can stay, or it's totally up to you. Next up on our agenda is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we will start with Nick.
City of Lacey official proclamation. Whereas the City of Lacey recognizes our future rests in the hands of our most vulnerable and cherished assets, our children. And whereas all children deserve to live in a safe, stable, and nurturing environments which promote their healthy growth and development, and
whereas child abuse, neglect, and other trauma are recognized as serious public health problems affecting both the current and future quality of life in our community, and
whereas it is the responsibility of our community to ensure parents, caregivers, and other adults who influence the health and well-being of children have the support, knowledge, and concrete resources necessary to ensure all children thrive to their greatest potential. And
whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships among agencies, schools, religious organizations, law enforcement agencies, healthcare providers, and the business community, and
whereas we, as City of Lacey residents, continue our commitment to protect all members of our community and call upon everyone to join together to increase public safety and prevent further abuse and neglect of our children.
Now, therefore, I, Andy Ryder, Mayor of the City of Lacey, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Lacey. I encourage all community members to increase their participation in efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the community in which we live. Signed by myself, Mayor Andy Ryder, on this date. And we'll have Shelley come up. Thank you, Shelley, every year for coming and giving us the pinwheels and accepting this proclamation. We appreciate it. Go ahead.
Say a few words? Okay. Shelley Willis, Executive Director of a nonprofit called Family Education and Support Services. This is our 25th year of service, and we're so proud of our city leaders for taking this on and recognizing that we have vulnerable kids in our community. Unfortunately, Thurston County is at a higher rate of child abuse than the rest of the state, and we know that there are actions we can take to reduce that significantly. The pinwheel is the national symbol of child abuse prevention, and so I brought some to share with you today, and I hope we can get a picture of all of you holding one, and you continue to have conversations about this topic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Another picture time.
He's going to go in there. He's my friend.
Mine always lasts until somehow it disappears somehow. So next up is public comment. We didn't have anyone sign up for public comment, but is there anyone wishing to address this council? Seeing none, then it's on to the mayor's report. So last Wednesday, I had the honor to accept a award from the Thurston County Chamber for Lacey was recognized as the municipal leader, and we won this our Green Community Award. And we have a quick video that we're going to show real.
The City of Lacey is committed to implement our climate action plan and incorporate that into the way we do business. It all starts back in the late 2000s and culminated in the adoption of our first climate action plan in 2012, which really set the foundation and stage for these measures.
The City of Lacey back in 2021 adopted the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan.
We didn't just adopt a climate action plan on its own. We incorporated that plan into our comprehensive plan to create energy efficiencies as well as reduce our environmental footprint. What's great about this community as well as this region is we create strong partnerships and leverage our resources together for the greater of the whole.
One of the regional initiatives we planned last year was Energize Thurston, which is a group purchase to subsidize heat pump installations in low and moderate income households.
For our water conservation program, we offer free water saving kits to all water utility customers, and that includes indoor kit, an outdoor kit, a hose timer, and a soil sensor, and we give those away free.
The council's been very focused on looking at how we can leverage grant dollars and city funds to start installing electric vehicle chargers throughout city facilities in the community so that it's available to the public for charging. We have stations now developed at City Hall, Timberland Regional Library, Woodland Creek Community Park, as well as the Regional Athletic Complex. We are starting to electrify many of our pickups and pool vehicles, working to installing charger systems to support that conversion as well.
Currently, we have 8 chargers here on site, and then we're going to get another 12 chargers installed by PSC in the next few months.
Over time, we're about 80% complete of converting our entire streetlight inventory to LED lights. We participate in the Community Bicycle Challenge where we promote bike to work. We also have looked at our buildings and tried to look at how can we make these buildings a little bit more efficient. We're appreciative of the award and acknowledgement from the Thurston Green business community and are grateful for receiving this award.
So when I came up and I accepted this award on behalf of the City of Lacey and our community, I mentioned that local government, when it's working best, it's a direct reflection of the values of its community. And I'm very proud that the City of Lacey has held this as one of their values for as long as I can remember, and I was born and raised here in this community. And we were one of the very first Tree City USAs. We were one of the first municipals to buy all green power. And so this is really part of who we are as a community. And I think it really showed in this award ceremony where there was 4 awards that were given. 3 out of the 4 awards were given to businesses in the City of Lacey. We also won the Small Business Award, went to Top Rung Brewery, and then the Medium Sized Business Award went to Ecos, which is produces green products and manufactures them right here in Lacey. So I'm very proud of this award, and we have actually won this several times over the years, but it's always a good reflection of what we care about in our community. So here's the award. Okay, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have just a couple items on my report tonight. The first one is a review of a request for a bid award for improvements to Lift Station 23, and I want to invite Jason Kashani up for give an overview of the project.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Staff recommends award of Lacey contract number PW 2022-12 to low bidder Pacific Civil and Infrastructure from Tacoma, Washington in the amount of $2,536,196.48. The project was advertised for 3 weeks and bids were open April 3rd. We received 5 bids, ranging from the low bidders, $2,536,196.48 to the highest bid was $2,697,216.92. We're pretty excited about that range of bids. They were all pretty close together. It means we did a good job in putting a comprehensive set of plans. The bidders kind of knew what they were bidding on. And they all came in roughly about 10% lower than the engineer's estimate, which was $2.9 million, $2,972,239.36. The project is expected to start in June of 2025, and we have allotted 250 working days to complete the work. On this slide, I've actually shown a picture of one of our nicer lift stations. This isn't quite the typical lift station, but kind of every time I come up here and show you guys one of our lift stations, it's usually the existing lift station and not the best condition. So I thought I'd change things up a little bit and show a good example of what a lift station could look like. And in fact, I think, if I remember correctly, this one was actually constructed by Pacific Civil Infrastructure. Oh, I'm sorry. If I go back, there's just a few key points worth discussing on this project. One, we're actually, lift station 23, we are picking it up and actually moving it over to a new site. One of the reasons for that is, from what I understand, our transportation comprehensive plan includes College Street extension. We're actually improving a portion of College Street right now, up to 15th Avenue. And I'm just going to jump ahead for a sec to kind of show the project vicinity map. So I just kind of pulled together a map showing where we are, City of Lacey, south of I-5, and the project site is north of 15th, which is still in Lacey's urban growth area, but we've had to coordinate with the county on this one to get the proper permits. But if you look at the image to the right, it shows Pleasant Glade Plat, which is right next to Pleasant Glade Elementary. This is a private development they just got their permits not too long ago to construct this plat. It's about 20 lots or so, and that plat included some right-of-way dedication that for the future College Street extension to continue on. So if you see in red, that's the existing location of our current lift station right now. And being that we're going to be putting a road, nobody knows exactly when that road is going in, but we thought we'd be proactive and say, okay, well, if that road is coming in at some point, we don't want to improve a lift station in the way of that road. Plus, usually our lift stations, the standards now are kind of require a little bit more of a footprint. So I kind of highlighted in green on that same image. We've negotiated purchase of one of those lots from the developer to relocate our lift station to that site. So this project was pretty exciting because it had a lot of moving parts. I got to thank Dave for helping us through all the legal nuances of procuring that property. So considering the transportation comprehensive plan, drives some of these improvements, and then there was also that whole basin out there is kind of a growing basin, so there were some other improvements that were required to be associated with this project. A lot of development is going on out there, and we've sort of reached the capacity for that basin. So this project will increase the capacity of that lift station to handle more wastewater flow. And as part of that project, we're actually extending, we're upsizing one of our force mains, which I show on a different slide. Well, I show a portion. If you see highlighted in the blue area, our project limits show the existing lift station in red, that site, the new lift station in green, to the north of the map. That whole blue area is the project limits where we're upsizing the force main and connecting to the lower portion in green, which is a portion of the College Street Extension project that's currently going on right now. So it was pretty interesting trying to, a lot of balls up in the air to coordinate between both projects and the developers' projects and getting the permits and all that kind of stuff. But it's been pretty challenging, and it's nice to actually get to this milestone to where we can, finally go to construction and the developer sort of relying on some of our improvements to make his development work out a little bit more effectively. The other image shows typically, this actually lift station site, a few key components, standard for most all our lift stations. We have a backup generator. This one's actually a pretty big 10-foot diameter wet well that's going about 20 feet deep. We have a control cabinet with the awning and our valve vault. All this stuff allows us to just bring the facility up to current city standards and provide for the increased capacity and growth in the basin. And like I said, the improvements will include upsizing of the force main to match into the College Street Extension project as part of the comp plan. And those force main improvements, along with gravity improvements, I just added a few pictures that kind of show to encompass some of the actual improvements that we're making with the new lift station, including coating inside the new wet well to make it last a little bit longer. And with that, just wanted to know if anybody had any questions.
Can I get a motion, please?
Yeah, I would move to award Lacey contract number PW 2022-12 to low bidder Pacific Civil and Infrastructure from Tacoma, Washington in the amount of $2,536,196.48.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
The bid doesn't include, obviously, the price of the lot that we had to purchase to make this happen. So what did we have to pay for the lot? Does anybody know?
That one, I believe we are about $155,000, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And there are some improvements that we were working with the developer on, because originally he was slated to go first, and we didn't want to tear up a new roadway, so we were asking him to construct a couple of those manholes and gravity a portion of it that we were going to connect to. But the way things shook out kind of benefited him to wait for us to construct our project. So we did have an agreement to reimburse him for some of those improvements. But if our contractor can do it for a competitive price and get there before, we're going to probably elect to just do some of those improvements ourselves with this project. But it should still fall within the total project price.
Thank you. Do you know how many connections this will have to this?
That
system?
I don't know, but I know I was feeling, and I can get that answer for you, get back to you, but I know that, in this basin, there's been some other developments. If you're familiar with around Sleater Kinney, I think it was Sleater Landing. I can't remember if it was between D.R. Horton and I can't remember the other developers, but we were they had a second phase that's getting ready to get constructed, and we're already at capacity. We'd just be like right at the tip of what it can handle. So I can't say exactly how many connections, but it's a pretty large basin.
I was actually surprised to see, when I think of anything north of 15th, I think that's like in no man's land, and we have nothing on that side over there. But obviously we do, and it looks like there's a lot of possibility for future expansion out there too. So this looks like a very important project going forward. Is there anything else?
I just noticed the engineer's estimate was about $3 million, and the lowest bidder was $2.5 million, so $500,000. It seems like we got a pretty good deal on that.
Yeah, it seems like we're in a little bit more of a competitive bidding environment, which we're always glad to see.
Anything else? Then it's been moved and seconded to award this Lacey contract number PW 2022-12, so going back to 2022, -12 to the low bidder. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? That motion unanimously carries. And for the record, Councilmember Vasquez is with us online. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. One last item I have is more of a kind of a notice, not up for action or discussion. It's related to well source 6. As council is aware, we've been working with a property owner to negotiate purchase of a property to accommodate a replacement well location for the Judd Hill well source 6. Back on April 2nd, we needed to post a notice that the city attorney would be coming to this meeting tonight on April 15th to ask for authorization to proceed with eminent domain. It's a good news. We're pleased to report that we reached an agreement with the property owner, and so we are not moving forward with any type of eminent domain process. And this is just mainly to allow the public to know that the disposition of that topic, since we sent notice out. So.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Okay. We are going to, after this, we're going to go into a work session to go over a comprehensive plan, climate element, draft goals and policies. Is there anyone that has something that they have to report out for boards and commissions? Or can we maybe save it to the next council meeting? Well, yeah. Is it nothing? Okay. Do you mind if we adjourn until 7 o'clock and we'll meet up in the back and go into our work session? Okay, then that's what we'll do. Yeah, Robin?
Is that a new link or is this the same link?
It'd be the same link.
Same link, so you're good. Okay, well, yep. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Just has to do with a couple events because, Earth Month, Earth stuff going on. So there's 2 events this Saturday, Tumwater Arbor Day giveaway. So give away a bunch of trees. That's from 10 a.m. to 1 at Tumwater Historical Park. And then this Saturday from 1 to 4 is a Thurston County Earth Day celebration at Woodland Creek Park. And that's from, like I said, 1 to 4 p.m. So.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that information. Okay.
I have one quick.
Go for it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is for fun, but Clean Water Alliance has moved a giant crane into downtown Olympia that's going to be there for 3.5 years. And so they decided we need to try to make this crane as fun for the community as we can. So they're having a Name the Crane contest. And tomorrow at 5 o'clock is the deadline for voting on it, which is why I wanted to go ahead and get this out there.
I nominate Fraser. Fraser Crane.
Okay, the nominees are Fraser Crane.
Who would have thought?
Shorty. Sir Lift a Lot. The Lot Ness Monster. Sir Digests a Lot. And Ichabod Crane. So if you go on Facebook, you'll find a link that will take you to a SurveyMonkey thing where you can vote. It's just a simple pick and click and you're done. But so I invite everybody to join in the fun with that.
Well, thank you for that. So it is 6:53 now, and this council will recess briefly and reconvene at 7 o'clock for our work session. Okay, well, it's 7 o'clock, and I'll call this work session over a comprehensive plan, climate element draft goals and policies to order. Let's go right into it. I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
All right, well, good evening, and first I wanted to start by thanking the council here tonight for taking some extra time through the course of the next couple of months to really do a deep dive into our comprehensive plan, goals and policies that we're advancing. So tonight is the first of a handful of series where we're gonna bring different elements of the comprehensive plan before you all to talk about the goals and policies that are in there that are all in draft format. Get your feedback, and then we'll revise and redraft these based on the feedback from you, from our planning commission as well, because these have already gone through our planning commission, and then our executive internal team, and then we'll get that out to the public for additional public feedback too. So first, thank you, because this is going to be a lot of time that we're gonna spend together, quality time to talk about our goals and policies. And tonight, we are looking at the first element, which is our climate element of the comprehensive plan. As I've talked to a number of you, this one I think is kind of like a good out the gate element because we're really focusing on just two sub-elements of this one particular element of the comprehensive plan. As we move forwards though, we're gonna have a little bit of heftier agendas. So this is a good one to get started with and cut our teeth on, and then as we move forwards, we'll have a little bit more items to go through. So these might get a little bit longer in fairness. So with that, I will hand it over to Ryan.
Yeah, thanks Vanessa. So as Vanessa mentioned, this is going to be the first in a series. So as you remember, the council has requested to be kind of brought along with the update of the comprehensive plan, and we're starting to actually get into drafting goals and policies, which you'll see here tonight. So as mentioned, this is going to be the first of 3 sessions. Tonight is climate, the next will be land use and housing, and then the last will be transportation, economic development, utilities, and the environment. So we're going to start really ramping things up as we get to the end of this process. The good news is by the middle of May, we'll have run this through not only our staff team and all the consultants that are involved, but also our entire planning commission, our entire director team, our entire council, and then wrapping up with the Commission on Equity that's going to do a review on everything at the beginning of June in preparation for a draft that will be released sometime in around July. So this summer we'll be doing some more community kind of road showing, getting people's feedback and comments on the full draft of the comprehensive plan. Ultimately, we are anticipating that we will be able to meet our state mandated deadline of December 31st, 2025 to complete this work. More to come as far as additional elements and additional parts and pieces along the way, because tonight we're kind of easing you in. You'll hear a lot from Lindsay. Lindsay will give a presentation. This is a similar presentation that was given to the Planning Commission. We'll provide you with some of the feedback of the Planning Commission as well. You'll hear this is a brand new element. Much of this is coming from state law, so a familiar refrain as we go through each of these sections is the amount and volume of state mandates that are required now as part of the update to our comprehensive plan. So that's much different than when we last adopted our comprehensive plan in 2016. We had way more local authority in 2016 around planning than we do now. Much of what we're doing is actually state mandated, and so just keep that in mind. Where applicable, we've shown what the various bills and laws are that we're planning under, but just understand that a lot of where this comes from, including the whole climate element here tonight, is a mandate that we're required to do under the state, mostly under the amendments that have been made to the Growth Management Act. So with that, some context, turn it over to Lindsay to keep going.
Thank you all. Looking forward to getting your feedback on where we're at so far, and it's been a lot of work leading up to this, and we'll go over that slide. And so kind of excited to finally get your feedback and then eventually roll it into a larger public engagement coming this summer. So we're going to be talking about the climate element, which you might recall includes 2 new sub-elements, the greenhouse gas emission sub-element and then the climate resiliency sub-element. Comprehensive plans are our centerpieces of local planning. Local planning efforts, they're usually 20-year plans which articulate a community vision. So the very first thing that we usually do is start reaching out to our community, asking them how they envision Lacey for the next 20 years and what they'd like to see. They also, it's a community vision through a series of goals, objectives, and policies. So in your package, you should have gotten a copy of both of these. So please feel free to, as you look through these, maybe tonight or tomorrow when you get time, to continue to give us your feedback on those. It's a large set, especially the climate resiliency one that has a lot of goals and policies in there. Lacey's goals for the 2025 update are to be readable and usable, reflects the vision, so the vision of how we see Lacey, but also our community, integrates and relatable between elements, so there's really that connection piece. It's not just standalone elements anymore, but how all of this planning efforts relate to each other. Streamlined, so it's easier again to read, to look at, to go through as a community member and for our staff as well. And then meets the GMA requirements and new laws. So like Ryan said, there's a lot of new mandates and across these elements and just ensuring that meets those. I could probably move this so you can see this. I don't know how to, there we go. So goals and policies are created through various avenues, including conducting audits on current plans, implementing new mandates and requirements, utilizing resources through the Department of Commerce. So fortunately, the Department of Commerce has provided quite a bit of pre-work for us in terms of menu of measures, climate, sort of like these examples of what we can use or how our language should be matching the mandates, and also providing climate planning dollars as well. Researching other cities' plans and aligning goals and policies with the community vision. Goals are the overarching objectives a city intends to meet in the next GMA cycle. Policies are how are we going to meet those goals. And I just like to rephrase this a little bit. So these goals are pretty broad, and you might read through them and like, oh, it feels like word salad, or like, how are we going to reach these? My example I like to use is our very first goal of the greenhouse gas sub-element is that we will implement the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, and that plan is how we meet that goal. There's 72 actions and strategies within that plan that we've adopted in 2021. We'll update that towards the end of the decade, or the end of the decade, 2028. And so having that goal to implement, use it in that plan, there's strategies and actions on how we're gonna meet those goals. And actually those get us to our greenhouse gas reductions as well. So again, just sort of that really high level goal and policy, and then implementation comes after we sort of adopt this. Yeah.
Actually, now looking at your graph,
yeah.
So we have the arrows, goals and policies, comp plan element. So there was another arrow underneath that would be implementation plans and documents. Yeah. One happens to be that there's like the tip for transportation by way of example, the transportation plan, and so on and so forth. So the implementation strategies come through other separate documents that come before you all, just in different efforts.
Absolutely, and some of those implementation plans for climate include like the urban forestry management plan, include like our bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan, and so those are also implementation plans that come through this as well. The climate element is a new requirement for this cycle of comprehensive planning, and actually I think all of Thurston County planning and everyone going through this cycle, we're sort of the first cities and counties that are going through this and how it's going to work. I think King County might have had to adopt it, but I think they sort of missed out on that planning. So we get to be the sort of try it and kind of work through Commerce's guidance and things like that. HB 1181 is that climate planning under the Growth Management Act that mandated that cities create a climate element, which includes those two sub-elements. So again, there's the mitigation strategies, which is the greenhouse gas sub-element reduction, and then the adaptation strategies, which is the resiliency sub-element. So mitigation, how we're going to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Resiliency, how are we going to adapt to a changing climate and climate hazards. So how do we get here? It's not just kind of pull it out of your hat and see what you get. There's a lot of technical analysis included in these, community feedback, planning commission, executive team, staff. We pulled together a climate staff team from just about at least 1 to 2 folks from every department within the city that's been providing feedback and looking at these plans as well. For the climate resiliency sub-element, we conducted a vulnerability and risk assessment for climate hazards, so really what hazards are going to affect us and what we need to do, and also which areas of our city are more impacted by climate hazards. For the greenhouse gas sub-element, we'll be using the 2022 Thurston County Greenhouse Gas Inventory. So using that work that we do with the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative to sort of set our baseline year. So 2022 per Commerce's guidance has to be the baseline year that we start measuring reductions. And there's actually a policy now within these. I think it's under the net zero one. So in 2025, we'll start a 3-year city-specific greenhouse gas inventory. That'll so 2025, they're 2 years behind. So it'll be like a 2024 or no, a 2020. Oh, hang on, I said that wrong. 2026 will start for 2024. Yeah, data. It's really confusing, greenhouse gas inventories. They're not very straightforward. We did policy audits of current plans, so looking at all the plans that we've had in the past, the things that we've done, like the Urban Forestry Manager Plan, the Parks Plan, to kind of see if there's gaps that we can make sure to include in this, or also just kind of reinforce those goals and policies as well. And then also reviewing Commerce's guidance to ensure compliance. We've also done a lot of community engagement. So some of these themes included, these are taken from our community, 20-minute towns with dense housing to make it easier for walking and bicycling to get most things needed without a car. Something we kind of keep hearing is about how folks want their community to just be more diverse in terms of how they get around, not just very car-centric, but active transportation, public transportation, things like that. Someone said, I want Lacey to be the cutest, most walkable, cyclable, and accessible tree city in Washington. My dream vision for Lacey has separated bike lanes and sidewalks along all roads and streets. And then another one was a vibrant city center with small local businesses thriving, with pedestrians walking, cafes, local shops, and restaurants. So you get that feedback from our community as well. These cross-connecting pieces, like how economic development plays into some of this as well. So we start to hear that from the community. This is just a brief recap of what we heard from the Planning Commission. So there was just some comments around cost and funding for programs that may come out of this, how it potentially affects the budget, but also are there grant funding available, for instance, the Climate Commitment Act. Are these goals achievable and measurable? A lot of comments around connecting e-bike programs to bicycle safety, so that education piece. Cost impacts to affordable housing. That's something we've had a lot of conversations with at the staff level as well, because there's a housing element and how these two elements can complement each other. And then urban forestry versus rural forestry. So there was just some comments around making it more laid out, like what is an urban forest versus a rural forest, because you definitely manage them differently as well. And overall was satisfied with the goals and policies. So there's resilience sub-element in the policy framework. So the policy framework outlines draft goals and policies of the resilience sub-element. So again, there's that technical analysis, community engagement, creates a policy framework, and that completes the resiliency sub-element. So it adapts existing goals and policies from city plans, recommends new goals and policies based on technical analysis and State Department of Commerce guidance, and incorporates input from the community and city staff. So some of the requirements and guidance from Commerce is that you need to plan for hazards. So resilience sub-element must address climate hazards relevant to Lacey. Yes, great, thank you. Sectors, there's 11 sectors that Commerce encourages jurisdictions to plan for. And then the co-benefits part, Commerce directs jurisdictions to know every co-benefit associated with each policy. So what are those co-benefits? And Commerce provided a list of 13 co-benefit options. So we did do an open house. We've got 39 comments on the resiliency sub-element. A lot of the comments around Goal 7, thriving urban forests. So tree preservation, diseases and pests, and trade-offs of forestry versus densifying our city and what that looks like in the future. Goal 8, resilience development standards. So standards to reduce wildfire risk and support solar. Another thing we keep hearing is about solar energy. That's definitely a big concern in the future and how we're going to address that. Second, this is the second administrative draft. We used the open house input, staff comments, that climate staff team again, integrated model goals and policies from Commerce's Climate Policy Explorer, and then we consolidated some of the goals as well. So here are those 12 policy framework goals for the resiliency sub-element. So the first one is outreach and education. Goal number 2 is community leadership, and some of the policies under that include creating something like a safe stewards community or a resiliency community. So it's really exciting to hear about the what Jenny was doing with our community and how we could potentially sort of model that in the future for specific emergency or climate resiliency, like having stewards within the community who can help other members plan for those hazards as well. Goal 3, resilience resources. So the resources that we need to be resilient, up-to-date data analysis and planning. So how we continue to track data and then update those plans and update our goals. Resilient land use. Goal 6, nature-based resilience. Goal 7, thriving urban forest. Goal 8, resilience development standards. And then infrastructure, transportation, and facilities. And then the last one is accessible shelters. We're just going to go through a few of them with you, but again, if as you go through them and you have any concerns or questions, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear your feedback. So goal 5, resilient land use. Prioritize resilience when planning future land uses. So implement the the shoreline master program. So that's one of the policies. Ensure development complements natural shoreline processes. Prioritize denser infill development over greenfield development to avoid encroachment on potential hazard areas. Avoid new or intensified development in hazard-prone areas. And limit development on or require areas to be natural hazard buffers.
So have we identified where hazard-prone areas are in our community?
In the vulnerability and risk assessment, we do have that data and information, yes. Yep. Specifically for climate, I'll just say that. There's a climate lens on this. So not a broad vulnerability and risk assessment, but really planning for those climate hazards that we anticipate.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around prioritize denser infill development over greenfield development, but to avoid encroachment on potential hazard areas. So, but like any of the greenfields that's within the city of Lacey are what we should be focusing on for density, right? So I'm trying to figure out how those two.
So now let me just try on this one, see if you want to jump in there. So really this is focusing on areas where we might see flooding, maybe sea level rise. We don't have a lot of that in this city. And maybe that's really it in this one, right? Wildfire, but we don't have a ton of that either. One of the nice things about Lacey is that we don't actually have a lot of these when you go look at the detailed analysis in the background. However, if we do know it's a flood prone zone, we do want to be considerate of that when we talk about our land use and development. So maybe we don't zone that for commercial and high rise development, right? When we have those conversations later.
Yeah, well.
So that's how
that should be like intended to be used. It should be identified like right now, like here are the hazard zones because of flooding or whatever, and identify that immediately because that changes. Because then you have to look at the zoning and make sure the zoning is compliant, and if the zoning is not compliant, we better change it.
Do we even have any of that?
But do we even have any of it?
Do we really have any areas that are?
Very few.
That are high flood likelihood? I mean,
No.
Mostly in all the years I've been there, we've not had a flooding issue in Lacey that I've ever seen.
The climate would affect.
Yeah, and so we do have this study, and the study will become an attachment in terms, like an appendix to these goals and policies. So right now, we're really looking at just what are the goals and policies, and that study informed these high-level policies, kind of got into the weeds, did the analysis, did the mapping, have all of that as a document, which we can absolutely provide to you all as well as the information that feeds into this. And back to like the first slide, we talked about one of our goals with this comprehensive plan update is to talk about how the elements work together and speak to each other. So talking about zoning, this is going to be our land use element, which is going to come at the next council conversation where we talk about what those goals and policies are. And we're going to make sure that all these goals and policies at the end don't conflict with each other and support one another and ensure that the overall document has some continuity and connectivity that works together. Because you're absolutely right in terms of we need to make sure our land use element recognizes some of these issues as well.
I'm trying to think of where is a potential hazard area, you know, that
We don't have
Yeah,
very many.
and some of these too, these goals and policies, when I went through them, I'm like, well, it doesn't really make sense. But like implement the shoreline master program. We have very small shoreline, but I would say we have very small Puget Sound shoreline. We do have lakes and shoreline master program, and so that's sort of like a requirement that we have to like have a goal that says that. And you'll see this in the greenhouse gas sub element and actually in the housing element as well that talks about prioritizing denser infill development over expanding into greenfield space. So really just densifying the neighborhoods that we have or exploring infill over expanding into potential hazard areas like wetlands and flood areas, although we don't have many. But we're also anticipated, you have to remember, we're also anticipated to have more intense rainfall in the future and shorter, so usually over the winter we have a lot of rain, but it's expanded out, right? But now we're anticipating like a lot of rain, more rain in a shorter time period. So you do get some of that like flash flooding and things like that. So that's sort of what this is getting at as well. Yeah.
I think it'd be a good time for the couple questions that I have. So there's a lot more requirements and mandates that are have come out now than the last time we did it, right? Now, my question is, how much has that, kind of like what we're talking about here, how much of that has affected what we're having to make sure all this stuff that might not really apply necessarily to us is in there versus in the past where it's like, oh, this is really, do we have a lot less flexibility now on what we can actually focus on?
Yeah, so that's why we did the vulnerability and risk assessment. So that's really supposed to help us guide how we're creating these goals and policies and so the hazards that we have to plan for. Although Lacey is pretty well off in terms of hazard to other communities, even in Washington State, we still have hazards we have to plan for. And so even though it's a small likelihood, we still have to have it, or required to have it.
More of all the goals in general.
Yeah,
in the mandates.
exactly.
It seems like they're throwing a lot at us, and it kind of makes it difficult for us to say, hey, well, this is Lacey and this what applies to Lacey.
And one of the things too with infill is like infrastructure as well. So like where we're putting infrastructure, we do have a few wells down in the Nisqually Valley, which have flooded before, which could potentially flood again. And so, and so when we're infilling those areas and not expanding out, we're thinking about infrastructure as well, not just like residential homes or commercial.
This is I think this is the first time I've heard hazard-prone areas as connected to the city of Lacey, and so I'm like,
yeah, it's definitely strong language for sure.
That's really strong. Yeah.
I'd be almost worried less about flooding and more about if you're going to have more intense rain in closer time period, meaning less rain, expanded period, there'd be more threat of drought for trees
and also stormwater infrastructure as well. So oversizing
the drainage of
I guess where this Scott, I guess where this really does affect is the Woodland Creek corridor, right? The lakes to Woodland Creek all the way down. I mean, that could flood.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, I just think it's important to keep in mind when it comes to floodplains and stormwater that this is something that's been going on for decades.
Yeah.
There's models that predict, stormwater events, and developers have to design to mitigate that and account for that. So, that's been happening for decades. It will always happen when it comes to stormwater and flooding.
My second question in general really had to do with it, because these are a lot of mandates and requirements, and if those things change, next year they modify those. Do we, and our comprehensive plan's already done, do we have to come back and amend our comprehensive plan, or do we have to just wait till the next one's?
Yeah, it kind of depends. I guess
It totally depends.
if we want to, we might want to make changes, right? The council might say, oh, they loosened this up. Maybe we want to make a change. We are allowed to amend our comprehensive plan once a year.
Yeah.
So if that changes, we could prioritize that as a work program if it was something that was prioritized by the council. We have a requirement now in GMA to do kind of a check-in at the 5-year window, and then the full update again is at the 10-year window.
And that's what I was wondering, if it's a mandate, do they make you go and say, hey, no, you have to come back and update this, or?
Usually it's at your next cycle.
Gotcha, okay.
This is the first time we've had a check-in date in GMA, and so I do not have experience going through a check-in date with the state legislature, so there may be things that come up at that 5-year window that they tell us we have to do. We'll see.
So on that last slide, it says prioritize denser infill development over greenfield development. So is that strictly for, because how do we tell a developer that we would
Well, I think the second part of that was that more to avoid encroachment on potential hazard areas. I think that's the.
We're
if
also
it's in a
almost
hazard
out
area.
of greenfield area to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, again, we have very, very little greenfield area to develop left in the city.
Yeah.
The city's pretty well developed out. So it's gonna all be infill and urban growth area, because there's nothing in this, there's very little greenfield left in the city.
Big greenfields, yeah.
Yeah, also just keeping in mind that we should get updated urban wildlife fire mapping at some point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's, that development's gonna mitigate, it's gonna be required to mitigate for all those, 100-year floods and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, so talking about wildfire, goal 7, thriving urban forests, expand and maintain the urban tree canopy forest to maximize resilience to heat, drought, wildfire, and other hazards. There is some recommendations we got from staff that we still need to work into this, and from the executive team. This is just in the draft version. So implement the urban forestry management plan. So that plan that we have implemented, there's a list of projects in there. Manage forests to better adapted to climate change and pests. So really just, there's all kinds of data out there around which trees and stuff will do better with specific temperatures and things like that. Maintain the tree city status, so keeping our tree city status. And everything that entails, which means the funding mechanism and how much we spend on maintenance. Update city code to preserve trees during development and to mitigate impacts of tree roots on sidewalks.
Councilmember Vasquez?
Lindsay, just, for members of the public, does this goal 7, thriving urban forest, include a plan to plant more? Because I know when we had a lot of discussion when I was on the planning commission related to our urban tree canopy, there was concern that over time our tree canopy was diminishing. And, we had the arguments about, well, we measure differently now than we used to 10 years ago. We've actually changed the way that we do the imaging. But I'm interested to hear if we have like a target for planting trees in the city, not just, designing codes so that we have trees that we plant on sidewalks as we do new projects, but are we planting more trees in our parks?
That's a great question, and that would be a strategy or action in the urban forestry management plan. So actually what we have, which would be on the implementation side. So in the greenhouse gas sub-element, we have a policy which is a plan to update that plan in 2026. So set new targets and new actions, and so that would be included in that plan. And I can take a note of that, but that's work we would start in 2026 based off these goals.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a very simple, tangible action to anchor to this goal. Like the city of Lacey intends to plant 5,000 trees in the next 10 years, something like that, I would like for us to have a specific goal related to planting more trees.
I'm just gonna make that note.
I always have a sort of hard time wrapping my head around the idea of we want to plant more trees. I totally agree with that, but we also want more dense development, right? Yeah. And so what we really want to do is encourage development within cities and plant more trees in the rural area. I mean, it's like a balance there. Like we shouldn't parks or open space, right? In places like that. Like I think we have to be smart about that because we don't want to go against the growth. We want more dense areas to achieve all the other goals.
Absolutely.
And we just discussed a few weeks ago about the issue we're having with the sidewalks and the water meter boxes and all of that, right? And wanting to get trees further away from all of that, which is going to require, it's going to mean less trees. I mean, the math came out to it came out to it was only one per block as opposed to what we have now in front of every home. So
yeah, I think there's a little bit of growing pains that we're gonna fill in the next 5 years as we go into a much more urbanized city. And we've kind of been filling those, right? Like we're gonna have to, our urban tree canopy may decrease over the next 5 years with the hope that it increases once we're built out, right? And then we're really prioritizing, because we're shifting right now from you know, rural thinking to like urban thinking, and what is the urban forest over?
Does this plan allow for that? For
Uh,
us to shrink back before we come back forward with more trees, or how's?
again, that would be like in the urban forestry management plan, but it could allow for that. There's definitely new data on like LiDAR and things like that where we could sort of prioritize, and we might have to anyways, including like pests. So like if our trees, the trees that we planted are getting pests, then we're gonna have to remove them anyways, so. Yeah.
One of the things in taking a baseline assessment of canopy too is you have new development to now drop your overall tree canopy when you study it, because the trees are young and not mature, but as they grow over, they increase that canopy. So it's there's a growth period too of new development and the new plantings to be able to be recognized in that tree canopy.
Keep in mind that urban forestry, like targets and things change based on all kinds of different things, including our municipal boundaries. We've annexed Cuyo Park, right? That's gonna give us a huge boost that we didn't have before. So just keep in mind that like, there's no perfect number when it comes to that, and we could set a target, but that number's gonna shift based on a lot of things, based on recent development patterns that's maybe gotten rid of a second or third growth, you know, warehouse or forest in favor of an industrial park. We've added land through, you know, annexation. We've done, you know, so keep in mind that those things are fluid.
And big master plans like Hawks Prairie or Horizon Point, those are gonna be sustainable because they're in the reserves to replace all those trees in winter if something happens to them, so.
Right.
And I think just, you know, pulling us back up, a lot of those are implementation tactics through our development standards, our urban forestry plan. One of the conversations we had internally on the language in these policies is the difference between forest and urban forest. And I think when you read through these policies, we've intentionally used the word urban forest because it does talk about what it is to have trees in a built environment versus in a forested environment. And as Lindsay indicated, we're transitioning from a more rural forested community to a community that has a lot of growth, that has a lot of development. And that will be some growing pains, but it doesn't mean we can't prioritize tree plantings and tree retention through our development. But will it look the same and feel the same? Probably not. So that was some real intentional language. So take a look at that language and let us know what you think.
And that's really where I was sort of heading towards is urban forest is what, right? Because we're a city that needs to accommodate growth, so it has to be the urban side of it.
Yep.
Goal 8, resilient development standards. So update development standards to ensure the resilience of development and redevelopment projects. Adopt fire-wise standards that supersede HOA standards. We did get some comments from the Planning Commission about this that we'll be looking at in terms of like HOA standards and talking with HOAs. Adapt or adopt resilient stormwater management standards such as green infrastructure and LID practices, which Scott mentioned we actually do a lot of already. So sort of like a continuance of things. So these goals might sound familiar because we're also bringing things we're already doing at the city forward as well. So promote sustainable building design and landscaping, identify financing options to help low-income residents. So that would be something like getting like weatherization of their homes and things like that, which we're already sort of doing as well. Advocate for lower insurance rates for property owners who reduce hazard risk. No? Okay. Goal 12, accessible shelters. So this is really talking about resiliency hubs as well. Ensure that residents, especially the most vulnerable residents, have easy access to shelter when faced with hazards, including, and most likely, extreme temperatures, wildfire smoke, and power outages. So these are really the hazards that Lacey is going to be most affected by within the next 10 years. Identify and advertise public facilities to serve as resilience hubs. So over the next few years, it's really going to be on us to sort of make those community connections, either with schools or community buildings, churches, things like that, to kind of build our resilience hubs in our shelters, especially for wildfire smoke. Looking at those facilities to make sure they have, you know, adequate filtrate or can filter air properly, things like that. So
in the summertime, when we open the Lacey Community Center for cooling center, is that right?
Yes, cooling centers, yes.
What's the attendance like for that?
That's a really great question, and I actually don't know. Because parks...
It fluctuates, because what you really need, one of the issues that we found is a lot of people need to be transported, right? And so that's been one of the issues, but during the real hot days, we have seen it, you know, been used for sure. There's always that that one period, the summer that.
Yeah, remember
you
that
can-
105?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's brutal.
And that's one of the things that we found as a gap in our city right now, right? And that we're trying to plan for is that instead of bringing people to cooling centers, if we just have more cooling centers in folks' community, then they're able to get to those facilities better and easier. So looking again at those partnerships and creating more cooling centers and more resilience hubs where they can also get information about all kinds of different things that they can do to their home or anything really. So, and so that kind of came out of what we found in the risk assessment as well.
And that weatherization is just as important in the summer as it is.
Absolutely, yeah, anymore, absolutely. So moving on to the greenhouse gas subelement, the goals and policies, so we're just gonna be looking at a few of those as well. Greenhouse gas emissions reduction, so these are some of the requirements. This subelement must address greenhouse gas emissions, how we emit right now, our inventory, and then also steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our community. We have to plan for a reduction in vehicle miles traveled. So we have to have a goal or policy that addresses vehicle miles traveled or VMTs and steps to reduce VMT in our community. Co-benefits, that word again, Commerce directs jurisdictions to know every co-benefit. Policy framework goal, so these are the overall goals. Implement the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan is our #1 goal because we have that mitigation plan already. We're already doing that work, we're already taking steps. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions by incentivizing the use of renewable energy, conservation and efficiency technologies, and practices in buildings. Develop guidelines for the adaptive reuse of buildings. Increase tree canopy cover to boost carbon sequestration while increasing solar access where practicable. And so I'll just note that in that policy, we do have we do have a policy in there that talks about building partnerships and maintaining those partnerships with Thurston County. Because when we're really talking about sequestering carbon, we're talking more about rural forestry land versus the urban. So there's that sort of policy about partnerships. And
I did have one question real quick about greenhouse gas emissions for existing buildings.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's directly gonna affect our old police station, right? Is that gonna kind of get in our way as we try to, either convert or mothball it or whatever the case may be that we end up doing with it? I know we set aside $1 million to mothball it. We don't really see a whole lot of future use in it, but if we have to, make it a clean building, what's that gonna look like for us?
That's a
loaded question.
That's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question. I can.
We have no idea what we're gonna do with it.
That's a really hard one.
But what I will say though is that the policy as identified that would be talking about this is policy 2.A under goal 2. And that says consider prioritizing use of carbon building materials. And we use the word consider intentionally in this policy so that when you look at each project specifically, Scott's group, they can look at the project, the facility, identify where there might be opportunities. We don't know what types of technology might be available in the future to be able to do these things. Maybe they'll be expensive, maybe it will be cheaper, but that way we can look at that, use that lens when we look at those facilities and then make that decision fiscally with the council.
And that comes back to as Vanessa just said, is looking at what's affordable, what we can do and balance those goals and policies. Because you got the fiscal policies of, trying to make sure we can deliver something with public funds.
So if this goes through December 31st, and I just feel like it could tie our hands in terms of what we can do with it. So that was all I was really thinking.
That's worth
thinking like this could end up costing us more.
Yeah, one of the things with just in the language is consider. It allows us, it tells us we need to look at it, but doesn't say we have to look at all the angles, all the pieces of the puzzle, and the fiscal ability is one of those pieces. New technology, new efficiencies, those type of things are the other parts.
I think that language is good. It's important that we have that consider and it's not mandating. It's not forcing us to do something that winds up being unaffordable that we can't do.
And I'll just note one other thing in the greenhouse gas sub-element. We're trying to address the two largest sectors of greenhouse gas emissions in our community, which are buildings and transportation.
Yeah. So goal 4, I just went over that one. Goal 5, reduce vehicle miles traveled. Goal 6, support increased urban density and housing diversity. So it's getting at, if you go back to what our goal as Lacey for our comp plan is, it's also to have these climate elements or all these comprehensive elements talk to each other and support each other. We really don't want the climate element to get in the way of the housing or vice versa. And then goal 7, the City of Lacey as an organization, this is a mandate, by the way, just want to throw that out there, will strive to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 45% below 2022 levels by 2035, reduce to 75% below 2022 levels by 2040, and achieve net zero by 2050. And the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan will be updating our goals in 2028 to align with this as well, talking about our community.
This is the state legislation.
This is the state mandate, net zero by 2050.
Question on that. So is the state mandate that we strive to get there, or is there a state mandate that by 2022 we were 45% below?
75. So there actually isn't much language around, so the mandate is that we're net zero by 2050.
That's the mandate?
That's the mandate, and then we have to have steps in place, achievable and measurable steps that, how we're doing to get there. A lot of jurisdictions are saying they're gonna be 45% below 2022 levels by 2035, including some in Thurston County, by 2030. I didn't think that was very achievable since that's 5 years away, so we set it at 2035, which gives us 10 years to get 45% below 2022 levels.
And are those numbers actually achievable?
I think they are, yeah. I think between what the state is doing, so it's not just about what we're doing at Lacey and in the county. The state has invested a ton of money and resources and new legislation into climate stuff, including the Climate Commitment Act, which caps emissions in the state and reduces them slowly over time. So yes, I think it is achievable. I think it's going to take more cities like Lacey, sort of doing their part to get there. But yes, for us, I think it is absolutely achievable.
So do they give you the 2022 numbers in graph form or something?
Yes, that's in our inventory. So it's actually on our website at the Thurston Climate Collaborative. We have the greenhouse gas inventory. We had to use 2022 as a baseline year. So you may recall in the TCMP, the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, we used 2015 levels, but Commerce required us to use 2022 levels. So that's kind of where we're
all those numbers are based off work that Lacey originally did back in 2000 whatever. I mean, the whole
2010,
the whole county, everyone's using Lacey's numbers, and so we're the ones that started this. We're the ones that first put out, here's the numbers. If it wasn't for that, no one else would be where we wouldn't have the data that we have today, and Lacey never gets the credit for that. That's why I bring it up.
We use the ICLEI model, and I can't remember what ICLEI stands for, but there was an International Climate something. That was something that was developed in the Assistant City Manager's Office at the time. And then we worked with, at that time, TCAP was just forming, it was at Evergreen Students, and they took it on and made it more robust and continued from there. So
but they used our numbers.
Initially, yes.
Yes.
I wanted to add, I think we can achieve our climate targets also. I agree with Lindsay. I think we need to be very thoughtful about targeting the emissions types that are the biggest portions of our overall emissions, right? So I've talked with Rick, and I think maybe I brought it up at this council a little bit, but identifying the owners of large residential buildings in Lacey, because buildings is the biggest emitter. And we have our program where we're incentivizing individual homeowners to transition to lower emissions fuel types in their homes, right? We're helping people get heat pumps. We're helping people get off of natural gas and electrify their homes. But I think if we want to make faster progress, we need to be looking at big buildings like warehouses and large apartment structures. And we haven't exactly figured out how to do that yet, but I think that is worthwhile in terms of like trying to solve that policy puzzle, figuring out a way to help owners of those larger buildings shift onto electricity.
Most of the large apartment complexes are run on electricity, right? They're not anything but electricity.
Yeah, there's a you're absolutely right. There's a way we've been talking about programs that are just way too like in depth, but things like portable heat pumps, the technology has come a long way to sort of help those folks in those buildings as well use less energy. But absolutely, it's something that will.
Because when it comes to apartment complexes or commercial properties, it's way more expensive to buy individual meters for each suite or unit. You know, when you're talking water meter, electrical meter, gas meter, you know, it all adds up and that pencils out a development.
The funny part is 30 years ago, we were all electricity. We were all building houses with electricity, and then all of a sudden there was this push for natural gas, right? And then now it's like 30 years later, it's like, oh, you need to go back to electricity.
Yeah.
It's a rubber plastic. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of went full circle with
that
too.
One of the challenges of planning this modern day is absolutely that. So goal 1, implement the thirst and climate mitigation plan. There's 2 policies under that goal. Policy 1A, explore local funding sources for the thirst and climate mitigation plan, strategies and actions. So how can we bolster what we're doing with grant funding and other local sources, if there is any? We can at least explore those options in the next few years if we have this policy in there. So potentially we could do more than one regional initiative a year, and we could sort of implement that plan faster. Or at least, maybe not faster is the right word. But anyways, policy 1B, partner with and support the Thirst and Climate Mitigation Collaborative's climate work. So just having a policy in there that's stating that we're gonna continue to do this work that we're already doing in the collaborative. Goal 5, reduce vehicle miles traveled. I chose these 3 goals as well because these are sort of like the 3 big sticking points of commerce on what they'd like to see us do in this climate or greenhouse gas element. So policy 5C, implement multimodal transportation planning to reduce single occupancy vehicle dependence and greenhouse gas emissions. We're already doing this work, and the transportation element will have language as well about multimodal in there, so it's kind of cross-connecting. And then policy 5D, implement a safe, well-connected, and attractive bicycle and pedestrian transportation network through prioritizing projects in the Lacey pedestrian and bicycle plan. So getting back at that implementation piece, right? So we're focusing back on that specific plan in this goal that has those actions and those projects. Goal 7, greenhouse gas emissions reductions. So that's that big goal to be net zero by 2050. One of the policies, policy 7A, is retrofit city-owned buildings for energy efficiency and conduct energy audits on city facilities. So one of the things we will have to do in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years probably, I think we have one building that maybe falls into the Clean Buildings Act. We will have to do by 2028, I think. But the other thing is to start looking at our city buildings for how we're already energy efficient, how we could be more energy efficient. And then also, and one of the reasons I put this in here as well is that Commerce has a lot of grants right now around solar feasibility. So maybe doing a study on the community building or the senior. I think we maybe already did one on the senior city. Yeah,
we've done it all of them actually.
Yeah, and seeing how we can move those projects forward or looking at the next steps for those.
So TRPC has the graphs showing, you know, baseline, the goal and the trajectory that we're currently on. Maybe can we have that next time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just one note about that as well. I know there was we took that out specifically because there were some problems with the modeling. But absolutely, we can look at that graph next time around where we're at and where we need to be by 2040 or 2035 in our goals.
So policy 7A, right? Retrofit city-owned. I kind of like the wording that we've been using in other areas where it says explore retrofitting rather than that's more of a mandate, right? That's saying retrofit city buildings. I think we should look at it. I don't know that necessarily means we do it because again, we have to look at cost factors and things. So I was way more comfortable with the way we worded other stuff than I am with that one.
Well, and especially when it comes to like if we have one building that is just super inefficient, let's focus on this super inefficient building, right? You know, and so let's be smart about.
Yeah, so at least explore retrofitting. But I don't know that we want to put ourselves in a box that we will retrofit the building.
And the same thing is kind of true for 7B, isn't it? Like saying like we're
technology is going to be the only thing that gets us to net zero, and we have no idea what that looks like right now. So to say there's no zero emission vehicle right now. So to say, you know, we need to transition, we just don't know what it looks like. So we should be focused on we need to make sure that it's a priority that we're constantly looking and updating.
The vehicles is mandated by the state of Washington, so that's out of our hands. That policy 7B is just.
Maybe I just don't like the zero emission vehicle because it's not real.
Well, Yeah, we
They
can
all
argue about
have
that, but
emissions
that's that's a mandate that we just have to follow.
Yeah, and just note that these policies get us to this mandate, this 2050. So absolutely, we could put language in there, explore retrofitting city. At some point, we will have to, or we will have to do energy audits. So just keeping that in mind, because in order to get to net zero by 2050, some of our buildings will have to be retrofitted. So just putting that out.
Haven't we done audits on most of our buildings?
Yeah. We've done.
Yeah. Oh, no, go ahead. Nope.
We've done some audits on some of our facilities and high-level audits, and we did also a ESCO project on City Hall with Amoresco, who was the fourth company that won a Green Business Award this last week. They did one for City Hall and our mechanical equipment, did some upgrades there.
Discussing questions, sorry, go ahead.
The audits would inform where we need to go, so I mean, I think that part we should emphasize.
And the part of it too is look at it holistically at our capital facilities plan and how we move forward. There's going to be, as we've talked about with the council over the last year, the police station is being built, and now we're going to be looking at some of our other facilities, and all those facilities are aging. And so if we start looking at the plan, the capital facilities plan for upgrades and renovations or replacements, then you're also going to be bringing up new systems, new building materials, those type of things as part of that process. And it's going to be built in. So it's one thing to maybe go and look at all the audit stuff now, or look at it and incorporate it into our facilities planning effort.
Absolutely.
Discussion. You know, when I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about like, how are we going to achieve the goals, right? We have the data that shows the two largest sources, and that's what we need to be focusing on, right? It's the built environment, it's buildings, and then it's transportation. We know that. And with the buildings, we have a lot, anything that's been built in the past 10 years, right, has been met to code. Those, are all probably pretty good, right? But there are some older buildings that I have no, if the building's over 40 years old or whatever, and we have a lot of those buildings in our community, I think we should be targeted. And I know that's what Councilmember Vasquez said as well. I think we should have a strategy on reaching out and working with the largest emitters and trying to help them be more energy efficient, because it helps their bottom line, it helps with cost, and it helps us. There's a dual benefit there. I remember this whole rebate program. I remember sitting in the office with former city manager Scott Spence, and we were in there with PSC, and they're talking about what they're doing, and they're talking about the rebate program they had. And I asked, what is the when someone buys a new appliance or whatever, what is how often does that get turned into a rebate? And it was surprisingly low, right? And so I said, well, that program's not working. Don't we want that program to be 100%? Shouldn't we be focusing on making it less expensive for people who are trying to do the right thing? And that's what kind of got that. How do we create a program where we can actually implement this? Because it all takes money, and usually the buildings that need the most help are the older buildings that have the least ability to do the retrofits. So, for me, that should be the focus. How can we focus on our lower income people, our older buildings, lower income, and develop a plan to help them do audits and help them. If you did these two things, it'd make the biggest difference, right? And so And the biggest problem is a lot, as you know, a lot of those buildings are rentals. And so the person can't make the decision, although it's costing them, because they usually have to pay the utilities. But they have no direct control. They're not gonna put money out of their pockets to change out the windows in a rental. And so that really should be a directed policy goal, in my opinion.
So you know that the rebates oftentimes are income driven.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try.
Oh, yeah.
Myself.
But it should also be as easy as possible, and we should be intentional about, we probably have good data of who's using the most amount of electricity on the residential side and the commercial side, and how can we reach out to those people, be intentional about it, to reducing their costs. It's a win-win.
I'll give you a huge example, because I mean, in commercial.
Yeah, this is your world.
So it's nearly impossible to get a new air conditioning unit put in your suite. Now, replacing the existing one, yeah, I mean, we've had quotes as high as $150,000 for a 5-ton unit. And that's the size of a house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, and that's not affordable. Mm-hmm. So you're taking these units that are 30 plus years old and trying to stretch the life out of them, mm-hmm. when that's the main culprit. So somehow, if it's 150,000, I don't know how many people just have that kind of money just to invest, right? If we could bridge that gap and find ways to have gaps, grants or something.
Well, and the thing is there's a lot of money being collected in the state of Washington for this purpose. Yeah. We should be connecting the dots, exactly. Right? We should be the convener of okay, here's the biggest issue, can we come up with, because the financing side of things is the toughest part. Mm-hmm. And how do a lot of those people aren't going to qualify for financing, so you're going to have some for the greater good, state-backed grant or whatever to do this, period. So that's where my mind goes on that. We should be focused on the biggest users and see if we can make a dent there. It just makes sense, because twiddling around, with small users, for sure. We should support them, but let's focus on the biggest.
Yeah, one of the things we might consider is putting a strategy in around how we can connect commercial buildings. I'm not sure how many commercial buildings we have that are going to fall under the Clean Buildings Act. There is some rebate money mm-hmm. for those commercial buildings to do some of the measures. They have to do an energy audit first, and then mm-hmm. So we might want to consider a strategy that's just talking about how we can connect them to. Because commerce. We don't handle that. We don't mandate that. So, but there might be a way that we can support that work through this. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that sort of really opened my eyes was I was at the Green Business Awards, and to see that the work that's going behind affordable housing that's still net zero. I didn't think that was possible, right? Because in my mind, you want a net zero or a low affordable house, there's no way you can make it energy efficient and still have, right? But there's actually stuff out there that is really amazing, and it's the ongoing cost of utilities that I think will be the number one driver of rent and costs. Everyone thinks it's property taxes. It's not property taxes. Property taxes go up 1%. Our utilities are going up 8% every year, right? I mean, it's just right. And so we need to figure out how, if it's going up like that, what can we do to make sure, what are the strategies everyone can implement that are known strategies to sort of use less electricity and less water. And so I think we do a pretty good job of that, but that should be a goal. And I would love to sort of connect and have that information out there where what can the average homeowner do? What are the 3 things the average homeowner could do to lower their energy costs and be able to give a presentation. Yeah, and
infrastructure.
I don't know what it is, like, I don't know what those are.
Windows and weatherizing and probably furnaces or.
And then,
for heater
like,
cooling.
I think we should, yeah.
They're all big ticket
problem is
items.
We might be able to do some kind of energy audit to help homeowners identify those things.
Well, obviously, an energy audit was the way to go, because it does identify it, but that's a cost, and there's a whole, I mean, what, I don't know. I'm just saying, let's be really more intentional.
This is good feedback to go back and inform these policies, because again, we're talking some specific initiative. We've got to create the policies around to support that in that process. I just want to do a quick check because we're kind of hit the hour mark, and I know Lindsay had one more slide to kind of set up the question, and I know we had conversations about all the policies. Lindsay just highlighted a couple of them, but what do you see in those policies that were presented that are most important? Is there anything missing? And then what concerns do you have about any of the goals and policies? Do you agree with the policy direction? Are there any of the policies unclear? And should there be any others be softened or strengthened, like you talked about earlier? Kind of want to get a sense from the council on the full body of those that work.
Well, yeah, I was starting on that. And so on one was being intentional. On the other side, so that's on the building side. On the transportation side, it's like all about increasing density. Like we need buildings to go up, especially on the major corridors that have transit access, right? And so we should make sure we have policies in place where it's promotes density and there's no barriers in the way for high rises to go up on our major arterials, right? That should be like a policy. I mean, is there something, what is the one thing that's preventing people from doing that? I know the problem is most of that big corridor is not in the city. And so, like, it should be, right? For the sake of the region and our future goals, right? That should be, I mean, I think that should be a priority, is to make sure the major corridors within
That's really outside of
I
this.
know, well,
though.
it's
it's obviously connected, but the reality is it's not. We both know, we all know, that development's not going to happen
unless it comes in the
that
city.
order. Because
until it comes in
and
the
I've
city.
talked to developers.
Yeah.
They're just not going to do it in the county. It's not going to happen.
Right? So shouldn't it be a goal to bring it?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a goal in the climate.
But we can't reach our long-term goals until we start having a more dense community. And if the reason why we can't have a more dense community is because the major corridor is in our urban growth area, that's an issue. And I've been saying this since I've been on, 16 years now.
As long as I've been on council with you.
Right? And so, because it's true, it's the truth. We all know it's not going to develop until it comes into the city.
There's a push and a pull on both ends of the road.
And even then, it's going to take 20 years.
Until it'll take a while, yeah. But until it'll take 20 years from the point it ever comes in the city. So the longer we push it off, the longer it's going to be.
I would just be careful on the language to make sure that if the mandate, that's when we use, we will do this, versus if it's not a direct mandate, we will explore these things. Just making sure that there's kind of delineation, so between that way we know this is specifically a mandated issue versus, not that we know this whole city's working towards making all this stuff work, but we got to just make sure that there's that line.
The other big thing is, of course, we do want to incentivize people who can connect to sewer, right? We don't like, anymore, the septic system is not good. We understand that. And the council actually agreed to have the surcharge put on to fund a septic to sewer conversion. I know we are focusing on Cap City and making sure that's done. Where are we at in that process? And then, we've kept on saying, what is the next step after that? I don't think we have identified what we're gonna do next. And in a policy like this, and a planning thing like this, it's beneficial for everyone to know what the plan is.
I'm gonna check in with Scott and see if he can kind of give a perspective of where that is.
So we're going to be repaying the debt we've incurred from Capital City and from Tolme until 2029. So there is no money to spend on that program for another 4 years. And yeah, we have identified kind of where we would go for priority areas in terms of basins and in terms of opportunity. But it's somewhat of a bit of a waste of money and our time and our resources to do that when we can't even begin design and action for 5 years.
Sure. Well, I've kept on hearing this future date of how long it's going to take to pay off the debt. I haven't seen any hard numbers to show you where we're at on that repayment schedule based on the revenue we've collected, which has looked like it's been over what we expected it to be when we did the original plan. So that's why I've been asking to see where we at on that process, because I know.
Yeah, what the council committed was $2.5 million per year, period, to that fund. So regardless of the revenue that's collected, that's the commitment to the septic to sewer replacement fund. It's $2.5 million per year.
That's being used to pay the debt.
Yes.
Okay. So it's already spent.
I thought it was a certain percentage of the utility tax that was going to do that.
I'd have to go back and check, but I think it's a $2.5 million hard number that was allocated to the program. And then, of course, the rest, you got, the rest of the rates go towards maintaining and operating and expanding the wastewater system.
Okay.
We can go back and revisit that, and of course, but yeah, I have to do some more checking, because, Scott's also been working with this program for quite some time.
Yeah, I'll look into it and get back to you, Rick, but yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay.
And we still have some more opportunity for discussion, but I just to say, I think that you all have rightfully pointed out that this comprehensive plan is interconnected. I have notes here where I'm like, okay, those probably would fit in land use, that might fit in the utilities element, and that might fit in the transportation element. So the comments are great because they can also feed what we bring before you in these next elements too. So thank you.
Also, I know, and I've talked about this in the past, I think that the things that, when it comes to climate adaptation, the thing that we have to worry about most in the city of Lacey is downed trees. So on one hand, we're very proud that we're Tree City USA, let's plant more trees, let's have, but then those trees fall on power lines and people are without power. And so, like, undergrounding power should obviously be a priority, and I know we sort of do it hodgepodge, like when there's something, when we're opening up the ground, we sort of ask PSC, are you interested? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but like that should be a goal, because it's not a surprise. Like
Yeah, but how do you make it our goal? It's not ours, right? That infrastructure belongs to the PSC, not to us.
Yeah, but
they have to underground it, not us.
Yeah, but I know that's what's tough, right? Because it's the main adaptation, it's the main thing that's going to affect us, but we're not necessarily in control of them doing it. But it's, when the when we have a high wind thing, that's right. People are without power, and so it's not the flooding that gets us. It's not the whatever. It's the down power lines. We're so on hand, Tree City. Other hand, it's the most susceptible to our climate. So I don't know how those two things work. And is there any other cities that have put any sort of goals around this?
So one thing I'll mention is we do have a utilities element, and part of the utilities element is that we're coordinating with not only our own utilities, but those that are privately provided. So Puget Sound Energy and Comcast and or any other kind of delivery of internet and those kinds of things are coordinated through there. So we can talk to Puget Sound Energy. I know their staff was at our open house that we had back in February, and they're interested in collaborating on that. So we can explore it through the utilities element, which is probably the avenue to do that. Understanding that we don't necessarily control what PSC does or doesn't. So we can.
We have like a encourage underground as a.
I was just looking through our utilities element right now. I don't see that language exists, but we can explore. We're updating that. That's one of the ones we'll bring to you at the third session, so we can explore that for that.
And the flip side of that is the private development side of that, where undergrounding is required.
We can, yeah,
private
yeah.
development.
Like
So
on
there,
15th.
yeah, so there might be some opportunities to write some policies related to looking at our development regulations to ensure that undergrounding is happening. And I know it is already
On the newer stuff.
on the
yeah.
newer
It's
stuff.
the older
So,
areas that have.
yeah, so it's addressing it on both fronts, right? New development, we upgrade, and then, you know, maybe
But they only have to
utilities
do it
element, we
for
can look at
their
that.
section, right?
Right,
There's no incentive
right.
for them to
Only
go
the
beyond their
frontage of the
section, just their
property.
frontage.
And then there's exceptions too, right? Like when certain things exist in that utility system, they may not have to underground, like the voltage amount of the power lines, for example.
So if we're at 440, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's too expensive to underground it at that point. Yep.
Yeah, we could also in the next, Starlink is getting so advanced as far as like internet goes that in the next 5 years, we might be pushing programs just for like solar, get rid of those, all that cable in general.
I am very intrigued with this idea of solar and batteries as sort of a goal. I mean, we are in the Pacific Northwest, but that technology is increasing a lot. And so,
even Windows now.
Yeah, so, I think it's always good how we can get information out so people can make, good educated decisions on stuff like that.
One thing I could potentially do, it's in the resilience sub-element, we could add an education goal within this, that talks about maintaining information on our website or partnering
Yeah,
with something we can
I like that.
explore. An education goal.
Education is really, super important. I mean, because especially if there's new information that comes out that people can implement, that's not really expensive, but can have a big change,
And then we're gonna take all of your feedback, and incorporate that into these draft versions. Then we'll pass it off to the bigger plan, that'll go out in July, and then we'll get public feedback from that as well. So that's kind of the next step.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you all so much for this. This has been really helpful. You have the whole plan coming at you.
Yeah, we do.
Big one.
Yeah, and thank you all for taking the time. We appreciate the feedback and we look forward to tweaking and changing these as we move forward, so.
Yeah.
And so as we do go forward, we have 2 more work session built in on the comp plan. The next 2, next one's gonna be land use and housing. And so the draft goals and policy will go out in advance, so please take a look at those and come in and ready, because we're gonna have more limited time and those are more robust topics, so we wanna have more of a conversation versus the presentation to set it up. So and then of course the last one, as Brian mentioned, is gonna be economic development, utilities, environment, and transportation.
You passed the test.
I'm paying attention.
And I will say where we started and where we're gonna wind up being, where we're at right now is pretty impressive for, just something mandated out of the blue.
Yeah.
And I just wanna commend
pretty well.
the community development team, Vanessa, Ryan, and Lindsay, and Hans, and Jennifer, and all of them, because this is a different format than we've done in the past of trying to get this conversation after some community outreach, but then go back out and then come back to council for the final push. So hopefully the council's got a little bit more.
Yeah, I think definitely focusing on where you think the biggest changes could be from the last plan to this plan, and having some focused discussions around that. I think maybe
focus on the big things, but
right, where the biggest difference, and let's focus.
The smallest things, the quicker they're implemented, they have the bigger effect too, but definitely those bigger ticket items.
So, is the next work set, when's the next one of these?
It will be the next council meeting, so that would be May 6th.
May 6th. Okay.
And then
And
May
what-
20th.
And the May 20th. And when are we meeting with the Northwest Post?
May 13th.
May 13th. Okay, well, is there anything else? Then we've reached the end of this work session. It is 8:14. And I'll call, without objection, I'll call this work session adjourned. Keep it classy, Lacey.
Good job, guys. Yeah, that was good.
I'm terrible at that. I'm procrastinating.
Yeah. Okay.